They're killing people in cold blood by the dozens, sometimes the hundreds every day. This is Mossad operations. It's Murder Inc., but it is part of the U.S. scene completely.
Jeffrey Sachs was recently on Andrew Napolitano's podcast talking about how Netanyahu continues to clamor for war and U.S. involvement in his wars of choice while continuing to enact a genocide in Gaza where IDF soldiers routinely, on a daily basis, shoot at Palestinians gathered in food aid lines. So Jeffrey Sachs is one of the greatest geopolitical analysts of our time as far as I'm concerned, so let's see him explain this and talk about what its ramifications are. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The President of the United States is having lunch with a homicidal maniac who also happens to be the Prime Minister of Israel. What do you expect Prime Minister Netanyahu is asking for now?
Well, he's asking for what he's been asking for the last 30 years, which is carte blanche to use the United States to make wars across the Middle East, a blank check for the United States to continue its slaughter of Israel, to continue its slaughter with American complicity in Gaza, and probably trying to plot some renewed war against Iran. Netanyahu is a warmonger, and he came to power in 1996 as a warmonger with a theory. The theory was that war would remake the Middle East in Israel's image. He counted on the American people to trust Israel and to back Israel unconditionally. Essentially, the political system has, until today, Trump has shown no capacity to differentiate, unfortunately, American policy from Israel's policy. We'll see if anything changes. I'm not optimistic on that point, but we know what Netanyahu wants because he always has said the same thing. At least he's consistent. He's consistently murderous, warmongering, and a disaster for the American people, and he will no doubt continue in that tradition today.
Yeah, no doubt, and it's an understatement to say he's a war criminal. He's always wanted wars and to drag the U.S. into his wars that he's wanted us to be involved in. In Iraq, he said that there'd be incredible positive reverberations break out throughout the region if the U.S. regime changed Iraq and replaced Saddam Hussein with a new government. He's also wanted U.S. involvement in Syria and Libya. And I hate to say, the warmongers-in-chief involved in those conflicts were happy to oblige. He's also wanted to regime change Iran and overthrow the Ayatollah. And, you know, I think that that was on the table, and it depended on the Iranian response, which was restrained to stop that. So yeah, Sachs is right. Ever since the beginning of his political tenure, Netanyahu has wanted to kill and involve America in his killing. And this was a break from what was called the Oslo Accords, this mentality that Israel should make peace with its neighbors, having some success with that in terms of Egypt, and some of that was due to U.S. aid. But now the U.S. is complicit in this genocide. It's funded it to the maximum degree. About $20 billion the U.S. gave to Israel last year, and I think it's on pace to do it again. So I'm with Sachs here. He's totally right about Netanyahu. And Trump has not differentiated his policy toward Israel. If anything, he's more pro-Netanyahu and more pro-Zionist than any of his predecessors. And he's sometimes bragged about that fact, by the way.
Here is the Israeli foreign minister speaking on Channel 7 News in Israel. I'm sorry, not the foreign minister, an Israeli member of parliament, talking about the only way to save Israel is utterly destroy the Palestinian people. Cut number one.
Great.
The war we are fighting today, which we embarked on the 7th of October, is a war against a Nazi enemy that threatened the existence of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. That is the whole truth. So the Prime Minister decided to do it sequentially. I'm with him. No problem, let's do it sequentially. You eliminated Hezbollah, you dealt a severe blow, maybe even more than that, to Iran. Now the time has come to deal with the Gaza Strip. How do we do that? You take off the gloves, stop the humanitarian aid, cut off electricity, cut off water, start destroying, and expel voluntarily, so to speak, voluntary migration, the Gazans. There are no uninvolved people there, no innocents, no one who isn't guilty. As far as I'm concerned, they're all Hamas members. At the end of the war, there should be two images in the Gaza Strip. First, not a single Gazan remains, and all 50 of our hostages, 49 male hostages and one female hostage, both living and deceased there, returned to the state of Israel.
Just think of that. He calls all the Palestinians the enemy. There's not an innocent one alive, according to him in that clip. And then just seconds before that, he called the Palestinians the Nazi enemy. He said, cut off the water. They all should be dead. Cut off the electricity. He's literally calling them a Nazi enemy while supporting and advocating and being particularly zealous toward this genocide in Gaza and eliminating every last Palestinian. Hamas is already completely dismantled for the most part. There's only, by charitable estimations, a few thousand of them left. They're not firing rockets into Israel anymore. This response is beyond disproportionate. It's a genocide. They're trying to clean out urban areas. They have been doing that successfully in terms of immorally in Rafah and other areas, cleaning them out, turning it into a parking lot, and yet they're suffering no attacks from Hamas and no reprisals. It is a wiped out people. This is a despotic situation, and posterity will look back at this and not be kind to Netanyahu and the politicians within Israel that support this. They're going to be on the wrong page of history completely. This is madness, and it was ghastly to listen to that.
Is attitude prevalent in Israel today, or is this just the views of a fanatical member of Netanyahu's coalition in the Knesset?
Well, this is a very widespread view. I don't think it's possible to quantify exactly who holds what view, but this is very widespread. And it is, it's the language of the Nazi Holocaust. It is the language of genocide. It actually, sad to say, it is the language of the Bible in the book of Joshua, which many Israelis read literally. In that book, it says that God tells Joshua, go in and kill every man, woman, and child in the nations that you will confront in the land which I give you. So in the book of Joshua, the Israelites are to commit multiple genocides. And this is taken as a literal command. This vulgarity that you just heard is genocidal language, pure and simple. There are no innocents. There will be no Gazans, no Palestinians left in Gaza. It's horrific. That is representing a policy that the Trump administration and the Biden administration and many administrations before that have supported. It's beyond cruel.
It is beyond cruel. That's the right way to say it. And I hate to say it's not exactly isolated. Even in the U.S., you have politicians like Brian Mast, who tweeted that there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. That conforms completely to this genocidal language. How ironic is it that they call the Palestinians the Nazi enemy when they're basically enacting the playbook of the Nazis in this? This is the Nazification of a nation state, and the U.S. is complicit in it. And, you know, it is just dreadful to contemplate that. And Moshe Feiglin, also a former Israeli politician, said, you know, essentially the same thing. There's no innocence in Palestine. We should kill every single last one. Every Palestinian child is the enemy, he said. Feiglin said that. Randy Fine, another U.S. politician, someone tweeted a picture of a dead Palestinian baby being pulled out from the rubble. And they said, Randy, how do you sleep at night knowing that this is happening and that the U.S. is supporting it? And he responded, quite fine, actually. It's just ludicrous, and it is just embarrassing to see elected officials in the United States and in Israel behaving this way. Again, people will look back on this and remember the names of the people who supported this, and I don't want to be anywhere near that side of it. So Sachs is right.
It's beyond criminal. It is clearly, explicitly, vulgarly genocidal. And it's horrible to hear this, but you can hear this from many, many Israeli leaders. This is normal talk among the political class in Israel. This is normal talk among the government ministers. This is normal talk among the generals. This is normal talk among the Israeli Defense Forces in Gaza. They're killing people in cold blood by the dozens, sometimes the hundreds every day. They want to kill or expel all the people. And the United States is part of this. Why is it part of this? Well, it's very distressing to contemplate how the United States of America, how people in the United States of America, but especially our governments, hear this, know this, and pay for and supply the weapons to kill all these people.
It's the power of the Israel lobby. John Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt wrote an excellent book on it called The Israel Lobby, and it details the power that they have such that they can make politicians and bureaucrats double down on defending acts of murderous violence like this, completely disproportional. Yeah, they were attacked on October 7th, but what happened all before that? The occupation, the treating of Gazans as second-class citizens, the blockade enacted against it since 2007. So no, Hamas is not justified in its murders, and neither is Israel for provoking many of those murders. In the same way that U.S. foreign policy provoked 9/11. It's not to justify 9/11. That was a barbaric attack on innocents. But the U.S. sure did give a lot of fundamentalist, radical Islamists reason to do it. And I say, I have the radical opinion, my own direction, saying, well, the U.S. shouldn't embark on foreign policy that encourages that kind of behavior. Whether or not those people are justified, they're absolutely not. So Sachs is right, and a lot of people will say this is all hyperbole about the IDF killing Palestinians, but mainstream accounts, mainstream corporate media are reporting on this, where they have videos of IDF soldiers waiting for Palestinians to come out of their shelter areas for food and aid and water, and that's when they're shooting them. That's because they're particularly vulnerable in those cases. So don't give me this load of crap that only Israel's going after Hamas that are using Palestinians as human shields, and calling them human shields is a way to dehumanize them anyways, because that would not fly in the U.S. If you kidnap someone, bring them into a school and say, hey, I have your hostage here, it would not be justified to bring a bomb down on that school. And that should be the standard for all parties.
There is, regrettably, an American version of this as well by a well-known United States senator who believes that the Bible literally commands him, as a senator elected by one of the largest states in the Union, Texas, to support the government of Prime Minister Netanyahu. You probably have seen this, but it's worth repeating. Chris?
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the...
It's in Genesis 12, and it's not in the Bible. It says, it's God speaking to Abram and saying, those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. It has nothing to do with Israel, a modern nation state created by globalists thousands of years after that. And the Christians are not obligated to support modern states, except especially those drawing them into foreign wars that are catastrophic, murderous, and conducting genocides on our dime. So Cruz is absolutely wrong about this.
The scripture off the tip of my...
It's in Genesis, but...
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator.
We are commanded to support Israel, and what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel. Do you not know what Israel is? He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is.
Just utterly preposterous. Nation states, to the extent they exist today, did not exist back then at all. And neither did Israel exist at all back then. Like, in the same construct whatsoever. He's not giving a command to support governments. In fact, many Jews abhorred government and, dissented from them and nullified them and, practiced peaceable resistance to them, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like Daniel, like Jesus escaping from Herod's law that said that the males had to be killed. They escaped to Egypt. It does not mean follow the edicts of criminal governments. It was a bond with Abram before he became Abraham. It was really the first communication that God had with Abram, telling him, leave your life of comfort and go out into the world because there's something better for you, and I'm going to make this pact with you. That's all it was. It had nothing to do with Netanyahu's government. I can't believe people are still trying to pass this off as if it's some biblical mandate, but that is at the root of dispensationalism, and I hate to say that's prevalent among many evangelicals. I'm an evangelical Christian, but I think that's nonsense, and there's no biblical foundation for it whatsoever.
Well, that last Q&A is just beyond remarkable. You're talking to a senator, a graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Law School, and he believes the reference in the Old Testament to Israel is a reference to the government of Benjamin Netanyahu today, or somehow carries over to that government. This is what we're dealing with, Professor Sachs. Is this a common attitude amongst Christian Zionists and Jewish Zionists in America today?
No, but Senator Cruz takes millions or tens of millions of dollars from mega preachers who preach this, and Cruz makes his living on scooping up money from saying these things. That's what this is. The man is completely corrupted by our political system and these campaign contributions. He's a nasty, ignorant man. We saw, if you watched the whole interview, he knew nothing about Iran, but he knew that he wanted to bomb Iran. Right. He had no idea how many people live in Iran. He knows nothing about anything, but he knows what to say to get millions and millions of dollars from his campaign contributors, who include the mega church Christian evangelical preachers, who, by the way, tell their congregations similar things and get vast money from their congregants. It's all a very sad system of monetary extraction and corruption.
Do you expect, let's go back to this lunch in the White House, which is still going on. Do you expect that Prime Minister Netanyahu brought Mossad with him to school the president on their version of what's going on in Iran and why he needs to be more militarily aggressive with Iran?
Well, we know that Mossad is joined at the hip with the CIA and has been for many decades in many crimes and murders, coups, assassinations throughout the world. And we know that Mossad played an important role in convincing Trump personally to bomb Iran in this latest display of our one-person rule.
Yeah, he's not wrong about that. If you question that, check the Gray Zone's reporting on it. Max Blumenthal wrote a really great article showing how John Ratcliffe essentially served as the facilitator of an arrangement whereby Mossad agents would be brought into briefing rooms with Trump in advance of the U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. And so this is not hyperbole. This is not just made up or, just kind of thrown out there willy-nilly. This is backed up with facts. We have demonstrative people within the administration claiming and alleging that this is what happened.
President does not have the right to go bomb Iran, to make wars, whether it's a 12-day war or any other kind of war. That prerogative belongs to Congress, but Congress is so corrupt, money-oriented, and dead to the truth that even when the president launches his wars, Congress doesn't care, that it is their function, not the president's function.
Totally right, and that's a bipartisan affair, whether it's Republicans or Democrats in power. That always happens, and the Democrats haven't made an especially large stink of this either, this recent one, especially the mainstream ones and a lot of the establishment ones, with one caveat that I know of. Ro Khanna has spoken up against it. There's probably several of kind of more of the left-wing populist types that have, but very little air is breathed on the account of the minority party about this compared to, Trump tweeting something off color, let's just say. War is the goal of the Uniparty. They want endless wars, not successful wars, to drain the U.S. tax base of our wealth and funnel it to their cronies in Boeing and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. That's just the truth. And Sachs is right. This happens regardless of the current party in power. We saw basically no Republicans make a stink out of this except for Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. What do you know?
So is Mossad there? Of course it's there. Mossad and the CIA have run policy for the United States for decades. This is not something new, nor is it surprising, nor would it be, well, it may be denied or whatever, but no one would take seriously such a denial. This is the essence of policy making.
Yeah, this is no mistake. This is by design that Mossad and CIA exist to draw the U.S. into their favored wars and to sow war propaganda. It has been really since its inception. Dulles' CIA did this to support overthrowing the governments of Iran and Guatemala, and then the Bay of Pigs later. And Arthur Schlesinger's memo to the president called this out. This was recently declassified in the JFK files and said, hey, the CIA not only is drumming up its own foreign policy that is often more dangerous and more militaristic than the elected American public that elected the president and Congress. And this is a real problem. They're even putting CIA agents into the State Department to sell this policy so that it becomes the deep state, the government's policy, regardless of political outcomes. And how prophetic was that? That still continues to this day. And he wrote that in 63 or 62. I can't remember.
That it is murderous, that it is secretive, that it is against law, both international and domestic, and that impunity is the whole style of government. What did Israel do with Iran in the middle of the negotiations supposedly taking place between the U.S. and Iran? It went in and not just bombed Iran, but murdered dozens of people, blew up whole buildings for their targeted individuals. This is Mossad operations. It's Murder Inc., but it is part of the U.S. scene completely.
Totally right. The U.S. is tied at the hip with Israel. The CIA is tied at the hip with Mossad, and these operations that are deadly and violent and immoral. Like Sachs just said, Israel's first strike against Iran wasn't against any nuclear facility. It wasn't against any government building. It was against residential complexes. It was part of their decapitation strategy. And then they embarked in that strategy to call up some of these high-ranking generals and say, hey, you need to surrender now or we're killing you and your family. We know where you are. And that failed. But this is part of American Foreign Policy, Inc., like Sachs said. And it will never stop until the influence of the Israel lobby is subdued, that AIPAC has to register. That's only a first step. But the U.S. can't carry water for Israel. We should not be involved in the Middle East. The U.S. should withdraw all of its troops from the Middle East, bring them back home, shut down Middle East foreign military bases. Do that for the rest of the world too. And we'll get a lot less enemies, we'll behave much less like an empire, and more like the country of Thomas Jefferson's dreams when he said peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. That should be the American creed. It's certainly the creed of liberty and the creed of the anti-war movement and of dissidents that don't want to put up with this anymore. So Sachs is totally correct. Israel continues to march forward into war, conduct its genocide in Gaza, and there's no real end to sight, especially as Trump not only condemns that, he greenlit the resumption of the genocide after there was a ceasefire with Hamas. And Netanyahu didn't exactly plan to entertain that ceasefire long. And then Trump's going on Truth Social saying, hey, he should be pardoned for his fraud and corruption charges. He's a war hero, Trump said. It's just blatant absurdity in the highest regard. And like I said a few times in this video, posterity looking back on this moment will not side with those villains that conducted this genocide in Gaza or those who supported it. But I want to hear from you in the comments below. Is Jeffrey Sachs correct about this? What can be done to constrain the influence of Israel in the government? Do you think Trump has it within him to push back on Israel at all for the rest of his term? Let me know down in the comments below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Napolitano too. His podcast is excellent. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can get access to my videos in advance of them going live on YouTube. If you support me, it also supports the channel, and I really appreciate that if you go that far to support me. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.